Hey guys, Hailey Lain, aka Key Black here with another episode of Off the Cuff, this time a very special episode. I have Jess and Monpian here to chit-chat about a couple of different topics. Yes, please.
Yes, we're going to chit and chat.
Yes.
Yeah. Both at the same time. We're on a road trip over here, and Monpian and I have decided to, cross the country, and we're now in Tejas visiting my good friend Hailey here. And we're like, you know what? Why don't we just shoot the breeze? Because usually that's when the most fun happens.
Yeah, and I think these little videos that Hailey's been doing recently have been really, really fun. So we thought maybe we could sort of like come on and chat to Hailey about
about things that she's been doing and things that we've been working together on. Yep, I've been bouncing a lot of the ideas for these videos off of Jess and Monpian as well, and they've been giving me some good feedback on it. So, I mentioned in one of my previous Off the Cuffs, the tabletop role-playing campaign, The Rise of Balxiros. I'm really excited to talk about this today because Jess, the DM and writer and basically whole coordinator of that campaign, is here to talk about it pretty much from wherever you want to start.
Yeah, I mean, twist my arm, why don't you? Gosh, I guess I could talk about my favorite roleplay campaign I ever did, Rise of Balxiros. I'm sure since a lot of you guys here have probably been following Hailey for a while, you might have noticed a lot of art on her website, and there's a whole section called The Rise of Balxiros, because she was one of the people that I dragged into this idea for doing a campaign with my friends. And D&D for me started a long time ago, I think 2003 or 2002-ish, and I played a campaign with my old buds from Florida, Greg Marquino, John and Luke Gilbert, Gabe Salas, Matt Johnstone. They're some very good friends of mine. They're some of the most creative and fun people that I've hung around, and I was really blessed to have them in my early high school, junior high and high school years. We played a campaign, it was a lot of fun, and we never really got to do too much with it. I think we had 4 sessions at maximum. But that started it off. That made me go, you know what? I used to only hear D&D and think it was dice, graph paper, and calculators. But for the first time, I saw that what it could be was a group of friends ad-libbing, having fun, making jokes, and occasionally telling a very good, sincere story with a little bit of dice to keep it interesting, where we're not just sitting here going, and then this happened, and then that happened, because the dice come in and go, really, did it happen? Are you sure about that? And so long story short, I was playing on and off for a while. I was, when I couldn't play in person in the different areas where I was living for my Navy job, I would listen to online D&D stories, and the best one that I came across was Acquisitions Incorporated. The best years for that, in my opinion, were about 2009 to about 2012, 2013. And I began realizing this is all fine, this is well and good. However, I was never getting exactly what I wanted out of a D&D campaign, whether it was stuff that I was completely listening to other people do or stuff that I was even participating in. That's not to crap on the DMs. The DMs were doing great work and they were telling the stories they wanted to tell. But you guys probably know me by now. I'm picky. I don't like anything. So, I basically, when I had a time to do it, I reached out to Hailey, who I'd been chatting with for a little bit, and went, hey Hailey, have you ever played D&D?
No, I have not. I have never really done anything fantasy related. As I mentioned in the previous one, my exposure to fantasy was Aragon and Harry Potter.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard the gag just now.
Keep in mind, I'm not totally crapping on those. I'm just looking back and going, yeah, they're better than that.
It's okay. Aragon, you don't have to defend Aragon at all.
Oh, I'm not defending Aragon.
Harry Potter, okay.
Harry
fair
Potter,
enough.
Yeah. I watched the movies. So.
Yeah. I saw the Aragon movie. That was all. Anyways.
Oh no.
So I didn't really know what the hell to expect at all. I didn't really know anything about fantasy or really anything nerdy to begin with. Like, my experience with role-playing on its own was limited to 3 Tumblr blogs. I don't remember what the third one was, but one was Lewis from Mystery Skulls, one was Luffy from One Piece, and some chatting on the Neopets boards.
You can't say Luffy from One Piece without...
I would do the Colleen Clinkenbeard kind of impression. Basically, someone would send in a question, and I'd answer it like, Monkey D. Luffy, I'm gonna be king of the pirates! Anyway, that was good. It was a lot of fun.
I was like, you can't get away with mentioning that without doing it.
It was a very fun vlog to run. It's basically the same voice I used with Bendy, except, just with a bit of a Brooklyn accent this time.
And he's not obsessed with Pegriano.
Son of a bitch doesn't know what's good. Anyway, so I didn't really know what I was doing with role-playing. Certainly not on the spot.
And I seem to remember we had to have a long conversation with you because you were so nervous for your first campaign.
Understatement of the millennium. Okay, listen. I don't remember exactly how the conversation went because I wasn't listening. Everything that you gave me as advice went in one ear and completely out the other.
This isn't a big deal.
Yeah, it's like, the role-playing Hailey had done before, and I think, the general vibe of her channel, it's very performative.
Extremely. It was like, okay, I know people generally respond positively to this kind of exciting content.
And so she was approaching the campaign as if she was an actor. And we're like, dude, no, this is just a bunch of friends, making a story. Don't be pressured, just be yourself, make a very simple character that you don't mind playing. Base it on yourself, because that's the easiest way to play D&D, just be yourself.
Perform and high pressure, got it!
Yeah.
So that's what the character I ended up making. Berkeley Tate I had kind of figured he would be this is so funny to kind of recount, because what I ended up playing in the first session was not what I'd written on my character sheet, in the slightest. Originally, I wanted this kind of gruff, kind of a moot kind of guy, might have talked like this if I had actually known what the hell I was doing, Very much a reformed crook who didn't really want to do his thing anymore and was more down to earth and more like, okay, I'm gonna genuinely be a good guy now because I've seen the crummy side of humanity. Not what I played. In the first session, immediately, no voice happened. I was not acting the way I thought I could act, and the character ended up being a whoopee. Basically, like, oh no, what a sad, unfortunate guy who's done so many terrible things and he really regrets it and he's gonna just, be so hard on himself throughout the campaign. Please feel sorry for my character, by extension, whatever I was projecting onto him.
Yeah, like, ironically, the advice we gave you was to play yourself.
I did! I just didn't know it!
And your insecurity about taking part in a campaign and being worried about, who you are and what you're going to perform, like, that all came out in the first session.
Yeah, you can see the difference in the character art that I did for Berkeley as well. The first drawing was this gruff guy, the second drawing, whoopee anime face.
Yes.
Yeah, it was hilarious too, because you never know what you're gonna get into when you bring a lot of people together to ad lib and to basically just interact, because the number one thing I hate to see is when people act. It's like, no, please, act like I'm not here. Act like I'm not here. Please, just be yourselves, be sincere, don't try to put on a performance, because then it's gonna suck. And originally I had asked Hailey if she had any friends she wanted to bring on, so she brought in C
and her brother and her boyfriend.
That was it. C, her brother and her boyfriend. So a good size group to start out with, but the very first session I could already see where the problems were gonna come up, and one of the biggest ones was Hailey's insecurity. So hilariously, I just had some level 1/8 hyenas to start them off with the easiest thing that they could take on, and Hailey was so insecure she brought one of them back to life with her cleric powers, and I was like, all right, you clearly need a therapy dog. So I was like, the dog, the hyena seems to wanna hang out with you, like maybe you should give it a name. And then she was just so like, Spot. I was like, really? Okay. I did give her a dog. I can't crap on the name too much.
I thought it was funny at the time. I still kind of think it's funny.
Oh God. So basically, the campaign started off a little janky, but we eventually found some footing with the recurring villains that I had made up for the campaign. I originally just wanted something that was very light, very fun, but could go serious. So I basically took Jesse and James from Team Rocket and I D&D-ified them. So I had Vin and Varys. So Jesse James, Vin and Varys. And we kind of went with that for a while, where it was a little bit episodic, not so much bad guy of the week, but the bad guys would be involved in whatever the event of the week was, and the guys, you know, the group would figure it out and work their way through. That worked all right for a while, but I very quickly realized I needed a veteran in here. I needed someone who could show these guys how to do it, because the content, and I hate describing it as content, but it was not fun to listen to. Mm-hmm. It really wasn't. This was something that I was only willing to do because I was like, you know what, I need a portfolio piece for my website, KaleiWorks.net. I'm not going to spend 16 hours a week doing writing and prep work to not have something to show for it. And it just, you know, I was listening back to these things and going, ugh, this is rough. Mm-hmm. Like, this isn't fun. So I contacted my buddy John Gilbert, who I've played, not only like, you know, played D&D with, but he's also just been a good friend of mine for a while, and I know that he's fantastic at ad-libbing, at just living in the moment, having a fun time. Whenever we hang out, we have a great time. A lot of good stories with him. So I was like, hey, do you want to fill out the party a little bit and play in my D&D campaign? He accepted, and immediately everyone improved. And I don't mean improved like got good, I just mean everyone had more fun. Mm-hmm. It was so much looser, and it was very clear that it went from this is a little awkward and we don't know what we're doing to, hey, this person's really fun to talk to, and that's what D&D should be about, in my opinion. So once we got John in there as Finn, the swordsman, Finn Arcus, that's when I was really able to start taking the story that I had in my head and begin fleshing it out for real. Because it was always bouncing around in there, but I didn't have any way to get to what I wanted to do with it. Then when Finn Arcus came in, I combined that with what I had in my mind for what we were going to do with Berkeley Tate, and it was also just around that time where the first group wasn't quite working out. C and her boyfriend and
her brother.
And her brother. Yeah, they weren't quite getting in the spirit, and you know, we decided to part ways, and I wrote them out in the kindest way a DM can do, because I've played with some DMs that are kind of nasty about that, where they'll kill off the character. And no, I just had them disappear so, you know, they could use their characters whatever they wanted. And that's when I brought in my other good buddy, Luke Gilbert, who's John's bro. And they had a friend who I had played a campaign with who I really enjoyed playing with. His name was Nathan. And he was a literal brain surgeon who also just happened to be a good D&D player and a good ad-libber. And at the same time, you know, Monpian couldn't actually be there for the campaigns, but she was listening to him and enjoying them because, you know...
It was really funny. It was like my bedtime routine because I have a strict 10 p.m. sleep time, and they would sort of begin sort of 9 p.m. English time, and I just remember drifting off to sleep listening to these things.
Oh my gosh.
So much fun.
It was like literal bedtime
stories.
It's
like it's bedtime story. Let's do it.
And what started forming as we got this kind of dream team of people together, we got the rookie here.
I didn't know what I was doing, but I was learning a lot from all the other people who actually did.
Hailey was good because she was often bringing the perspective that no one else was thinking of, because no one else would think in that way.
It was a much better balance because you had 3 people who had played the game before. They were very comfortable in their own skin. They were having a great time, and then you had only one person who was more insecure and more quirky and more didn't really know what they were doing. Whereas I think before the original team, everybody was a me, basically.
Yes. No one knew what they were doing. Yeah. There were insecurities everywhere.
Yeah. And this was more like, okay, there's the team, and then there's Hailey bringing the comedy every week, doing my best.
It kind of ended up working out because, of course, Berkeley was the kind of character that I could really use for the MacGuffins, and you know, the Rise of Balxiros is absolutely a MacGuffin-heavy story, because when you're making a story, the last thing you want to do is overcomplicate things. So when I started this whole thing off, I'm like, okay, what's the plot going to be? the world is becoming bad because bad people are doing bad things with bad MacGuffins. And that you can do so much with that. It doesn't have to be the craziest, most original subversion of expectations that everyone seems to want to cling to. And at the same time, you know, I was relatively familiar with a lot of other D&D content. I'm not saying that I knew it. I'm just saying I was familiar with it because I know some people are going to be like, I bet you didn't even play Baldur's Gate. And I'll say, no, I didn't play Baldur's Gate. I have no idea about that game until I listened to Acquisitions Incorporated. But that being said, some of you guys who might already...
I find it funny that I played all those games, but I'm not into D&D.
Oh my god.
D&D games!
I know, it's crazy.
But yeah, like basically what I did was, you know, anyone who's familiar with the D&D probably has heard about the Eye and the Hand of Vecna. And again, if you're familiar with the Rise of Balxiros, you know about the Eye and the Claw of Balxiros. And then you go, wait a minute, you just ripped off D&D. It's like, yes, just like Gary Gygax ripped off Lord of the Rings, and just like 50 Shades of Grey ripped off Twilight, and just like Hellsing ripped off Trigun. It's like, ripped off is just a lovely way to say inspired by, you know.
Sonic the Hedgehog is Goku.
Yeah, literally. It's the same thing over and over. So, but yeah, that's where the Rise of Balxiros started, with a very simple premise that I knew I could cut into bite-sized chunks every week for a group of people who didn't know what they were doing. But then when I got the veterans in, who could pick up on the threads that I would drop, they kind of fell into their character archetypes. They inherently knew what would happen if something came along. What would happen if I did this? What would happen if I did that? And that's when the symbiosis really got good, because now I could take the characters that I was simply using as a kind of starter, like almost a fuse, like, here you go, do something with it. Now I could integrate them, and that's when I really brought in Varys as the DM NPC that I could use as the pawn piece to move gently in the direction that I thought my crew would like the best. And I know some people, some DMs take this in the wrong direction, and they go, if my players don't do exactly what I want them to do, they're wrong. That's the worst way to DM. You do not want to do that. What you want to do is get familiar with your players, feel out what they enjoy, and then make things that will lead them to that. And that doesn't mean one outcome. That means usually what I'd have is branching outcomes. So I'd have wherever we started from the day before, and then I'd think of 3 ways it could go. A way that would probably be the way everyone would like best, a way that would probably be what everyone would like the least, and then somewhere in the middle where maybe things just didn't go either way because it was a more neutral or people weren't picking up on the threads. And then from those 3, I would branch another 3 and another 3. And Hailey, you saw one of my write-ups one time.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, I was actually privy to this because I wasn't taking part in the campaign. Jess would sometimes send me in Word document form she was really excited about what could happen next week at the session, and so she'd send me these sometimes 10 to 20 page long Word documents of all the things that they could do and what she had planned. And we would have like great conversations like, oh, I hope they do this.
It would be so great. God, I hope they don't do this.
Most of the time you said that we ended up doing the ones that were going in the direction you expected the most.
Yeah, and Monpian can confirm this. I wouldn't say I pride myself on it, but it's just something that I've observed. I'm pretty good at kind of reading people. And I use that when I storytell to kind of be like, I have a feeling this is what they're going to do if presented with this situation. And then what would be the coolest thing to happen if they did this? And then I would branch off of that. And then, of course, I would pull myself back, be like, all right, keep myself humble. I don't know these people. They might not like that at all. Maybe I had a totally wrong read on it. And then I would go the opposite way and say, okay, let's branch this way. But for the most part, as Monpian and I are having a great time talking about the coolest stuff that could happen, that's generally where the story ended up going, which made it great for me because, man, my ideas...
There was some pathways where I was like, I think almost every week you had a party wipe.
Yeah.
Scenario.
A scenario, yeah, possibility. Yeah,
Wasn't there a case where Berkeley could have died and then
there are many cases.
No, I know, but like I'm talking about like the specific one you told me about. You said that a possibility might have been if things happened a certain way, Berkeley would have died, and I would have taken over Varys' character.
You would have started role playing Varys' character.
Yep.
That was one of the many possibilities as things went, because one of the best things you can do as a DM is ensure that your players don't feel like they're being babysat. Because nothing is worse to a creative mind than feeling like they actually don't have a choice or that there's actually no danger. And again, this is where I've seen too many DMs take this the wrong direction, where they go, oh, I've got to try to kill my party every time. No, you don't want to try to kill the party, but you want to make sure that at no point is there any possibility that they couldn't be in mortal danger, especially with huge story moments or with a big build up to maybe a confrontation that everyone was anticipating. And with some of those, it was real dicey, but I would do my due diligence and I would be like, all right, yes, this is what the books are saying the challenge level on this thing is, but I never, again, I don't like calculators, I don't like formulas, I like guidelines rather than actual rules. And so what I would do is I would sometimes adjust whatever I was throwing at them, either beforehand or even on the fly. If I would see, oh, this is way too easy for them, okay, I'm gonna start doing this, or oh, they're not ready for this. I wouldn't nerf it, but I would ensure that there were options where someone could be a real hero, could do something really cool where they wouldn't mind dying, or have an option where, look, there might be a wipe, but they actually befriended this person in the last session where they could happen to be around and at least prevent these guys from getting completely murderized, wake up in a bed, kind of situation. And that was a fine balance, because again, you do not want to give off the impression that there's no choice or that there's no danger. Those are death knells for a campaign.
And I think it also goes back to being able to read people, because I think when you listen to the campaign, people project so much onto their characters that sometimes they're asking for a plot line, they're asking for something that might help them personally, and I think we saw that with some of the characters, such as Berkeley Tate, where it's sort of like we were having these conversations, me and Jess behind the scenes, being like, wow, Hailey really she's asking us a question, and I think Jess has to find a way of getting that answer for her, not only for her character but for her. And it was really fun seeing Jess switch up the story on the fly to maybe sort of make it it's almost like a pseudo therapy session where people, they've come to the session and that they might be having a difficult time in life, or they might be thinking about something, or they might want the answer to something, and it's the DM's job to be like, okay, in order for this person to have a good time and to add meaning to what we're doing, we've got to adjust the story so that everybody gets some kind of meaning out of what they're doing. It's not just, oh, I've written this character and here are all the binary ways that it could happen. It's sort of just like very in the moment, you're dealing with people, emotions, and you just want it to flow correctly, and that was really fun. I think you could probably talk about Berkeley Tate a lot in terms of that kind of
oh my gosh, absolutely.
Player development and character development as one.
Yeah, that should be a whole different.
I want that to be a whole other episode. I was just one of the things you mentioned just reminded me. Like I remember one of the early recordings. It's not available online anymore. The creative solutions to some of the monsters, for instance. I remember we had one of those like jelly things following us at some point.
Oh yeah,
and we dehydrated it.
Yeah,
That happened twice actually.
Yeah, but that was more just like, I like rewarding creativity, because it's like, it's got this many hit points and all that garbage, but if you've got a spell that literally says destroy water and it's made of water, there you go. But yeah, basically it turned into something a lot cooler than what it started out as, and that should be the goal of every group story event, in my opinion. It was a lot of fun to be participating in and leading and facilitating something that everyone enjoyed so much. And I think I realized at one point we had been doing these sessions weekly, and I kind of looked back and went, I don't think we've missed a single session.
Nope.
And that almost never happens in D&D because, look, it's D&D. You've got real life stuff. You've got work, you've got your own hobbies, you've got your significant other, you've got other friends, and you've, of course, got real life that's not in front of a computer and a keyboard. But it was such an engaging story that it was amazing to see people were rearranging their schedules to make sure that they could meet it. And then in a few cases where there was no way to rearrange a schedule because it was just, real life wouldn't facilitate it, I would actually have my players saying, hey, could we adjust because I really don't want to miss this week? And I'm like, no problem, let's push it to this day instead, or push it up an hour or two, or whatever we needed to do to facilitate. And it really ended up feeling like, we talked about this in the last episode, a creative endeavor, like a production. And I love that. I crave that level of participation and joy from people who are just chatting with me and sharing time with me. Because that's the other big thing about D&D. It's a time sink. It's a solid commitment of between 3 and 4 hours a week. And I don't want to waste people's time because I don't want people to waste my time. And to see people not only, happy to spend that time, but actually actively arranging their schedules to use that time, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Really, really loved seeing that. But about the campaign, I mean, for those of you who haven't listened to it,
Plug.
Yeah.
Please.
I mean,
guys, it's over on KaleiWorks.net. Please, it's fantastic. All the episodes that are available can be listened to there. I had the pleasure of editing the episodes, so there's a little bit of my pride mixed up in that. Some of them have music. I'm actually kind of going through very, very slowly and tightening up some of the recordings and some of the edits. So hopefully adding some music into the ones that don't have them in the near future. But yeah, guys, I think we should probably cap it off there because otherwise it's going to go even longer. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye.